Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Anybody know what the definition of procuring cause is for the National Association of Realtors? You ever seen it or read it or heard it in
I don't remember.
class? It's a series of causal events that leads to the buyer's decision to buy the property. In other words, you're setting the foundation for them to do it. It doesn't mean they walk through your open house and you were the first one to talk to them. Years ago, I don't know if anybody was around, years ago, they used to have a threshold law. They came across your threshold, you had procuring cause. Well, that's not the way it works anymore. And just to cut to the bottom line with most of this, if you end up in a commission dispute, you are usually better off to get something worked out with the other agent than you are to fight it all the way through to arbitration. Arbitration is where we go if we're in a conflict with another company over commissions. Now, you may decide to do that. Just need to know that when it goes to arbitration, it's usually all yours or all theirs. They don't split it. I heard one instance where they do that, but for the most part, it's either all theirs or all yours. And the other thing we don't know today is who are those 5 realtors going to be sitting up there at the as the arbitration committee. You know, first off, you'll send, if let's say that you were going to do an arbitration, your buyer went and bought with somebody else. You'll send in a request to arbitrate, and they'll have to answer it, and it goes to a grievance committee, and they say whether or not it's arbitratable. And most of the time it's going to be. And then you go and you're sitting in front of 5 people. There's one person leading it. But again, you don't know where those people are sitting as far as their thought process. My experience with ones we did in my previous company over the past year is there's some bad decisions being made. If at all possible, you're better off to work it out. Because even if we think you've got a really good, and there were some we thought we had the case down, you're at the mercy of what those people say. There's really not much of an appeal unless you think something was done wrong in the process with it. So if the process was fine and they made a bad decision, you're kind of stuck with it. There are times when you may want to do it, and we have done it in one, but again, it's usually better off to get something worked out. If you get into a commission dispute, do not pull the buyers or sellers into it. That's the worst thing you can do, because they're not going to be, you know, the buyer just wants the house. Yeah, they may care whether you get paid or not, but don't get into a peeing match with them because they just want the house. And if push comes to shove, the last person we really want to get upset about it is the buyer. Yeah, they hosed you over and did that, but you really don't want to, if you can help it, get into a situation where they're involved in it. You want to keep it between you and the other agent. If the other agent pulls them in and the buyers call you, just try to stay neutral on it and do that. What does it mean, the series of causal events? Well, let's say they've come through that agent's open house and they showed them the house, and maybe they showed it one more time, but you have been working with them, showing them houses, you've gotten them pre-approved for a loan, you've gotten them set up with inspectors or understanding, lots of things like that. They come back to you to write the offer, and you're going to go through setting up the inspection for them. You're going to start building the case that you're the procuring cause for it. Why did they do this? Yeah, they went over and looked at it with them twice, but why did they really buy it? Because of all the other stuff that you did as a foundation for them buying it. That's what that's what it should be. That's not always what happens when you get to the arbitration committee. But that's what you're going to look for with it. If it happens, I think in most cases you're better off to talk to the other agent and say, hey, this is what happened with it. You know, are we okay with this? Can we work something out? Sometimes they will not say anything and then just not pay the commission when it comes time. Then then we have to arbitrate because we already don't have anything. So the worst case we do is go to arbitration and get nothing.
You don't ask for any written thing,
if you can get that. I mean, that's the best case. You know, hey, my buyers came through your open house. Sorry about that. You know, I didn't know they were out there. I've been working with them for this long. We've done all these kind of things, and be nice to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I see people get into more trouble with other agents is when they call in and they're leading with their chin and they're really jerks. Yeah. You know, and they're bitchy about it. Well, that person really didn't anything. Even if they did, don't take that tack with it. You know, the more you can keep on an even keel with any kind of a conflict with another agent, the better off it is, even if they go ranting and raving. It's hard for them to continue ranting and raving when you're on an even keel with it. Now, you may be behind the scenes wanting to yell and scream and all that kind of stuff, but if you don't do it with the other agent, it makes it that much easier. Whenever I've gotten involved in things and both sides have started yelling at each other, we both kind of lose at that point in time. It's hard to bring it back to normal. Sometimes I know the other broker, I know the other attorneys or something like that from the other company. We can try to calm things down a little bit, but always take a respectful path. And hopefully get somebody who's respectful too. But one of the things we're running into this market is there are some people not selling the amount of houses they used to sell. So they're not as nice to deal with as maybe they were back when they were selling more houses. So just keep that in mind also with it.
She did run into that.
What?
I did run into that with another agent. It was supposed to be 2.7 payout and she gave them 2.5. And I had proof of all of it, that MLS was 2.7. This is new construction. And my buyers, I sent them to her open house for new construction for her at the bottom, which she was sitting in. And I called her and let her know we were coming, etc. And she tried telling me, they were my buyers and such. But either way, I had my contract already for almost a year. And they decided to still pay my bills and walked through with them. And such. Anyway, went to our closing, and she was just being rude to me through everything, the prep.
Somebody from another firm?
Yeah. So we went to the closing, and I expected like my payout with this, right? 2.7. All other models or all other closings in there, their listed was 2.7, and previous MLS was 2.7. I had it all copies of everything, and I put it on email to her and to her husband. And I said, if you choose to not pay me what I owe the broker.
Okay.
I think I would do that way.
For 0.2.
Well, unfortunately, there's some people in today's market that if they bully enough, they think they're going to get, they're going to win enough times.
I had an agent directly point blank 3 times call me a liar over the phone. I don't believe you, you're lying. Over the earnest money check. Said I want another one right now in my hand.
Delivery is in the mail.
Well then, no, he did get it.
Yeah.
He missed it. And he called me yelling.
Delivery is in the mail.
That's a Remax agent.
Yeah, it doesn't, huh?
That was a Remax agent.
Well, I know there's some of those there too.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody's got people that are jerks.
Yeah.
It just works out better to deal with everybody on a civil basis, because everybody's got the same goal, is to get through the closing. But as dumb as it sounds, delivery is putting it in the mailbox. Now, if it took a week to get there or 2 weeks because it went through New Mexico, it's still delivery. It's just kind of hard to prove it.
Because where we came from, she did not want us mailing anything. She wanted us to drive to Apple Valley or whatever and deliver.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Right.
Because I don't trust the mail that much. And quite frankly, the best way to do it is trust funds nowadays.
Well, that's what I try to do all the time.
But some companies are too small and they haven't signed up for it,
right,
for whatever reason. You're better off to the other way. The problem when you put it in the mail is it's kind of hard unless you're going to do it certified stuff, which you're not going to do. It's not worth the money for it.
Right.
Some people will take a picture of the mailbox with their, putting it in the mailbox with a timestamp on it. We don't mail things very often anymore, but putting it in the mailbox is considered delivery. So the part of the purchase agreement says you'll deliver it within 2 business days. That is delivery.
And that actually popped up because of one of my transactions. We didn't get the earnest money for 3 business days.
Mm-hmm. Well, business days is when the broker that gets it has to deposit it.
Yeah. So I was the listing broker.
Mm-hmm.
So the buyer's agent didn't get it to our brokerage for 3 business days.
That's fine. They could have got to you a week later. As long as you deposit it within 3 business days, you're good.
But they were supposed to get it to us within 2 business days.
If they mail it, it's whenever it
The
gets there.
Department of Commerce got involved.
Had they mailed it?
Yes, they were involved. We need receipt within 2 business days.
Delivery commerce is wrong.
Because we were I had to hand all my files to the Department of Commerce, because what happened is that buyer canceled the earnest money check.
Okay.
So that person lodged a complaint. So that probably works until someone lodges a complaint. And then
Legally, it's delivery.
Who lodged the complaint?
The seller?
The seller,
Yeah.
because it was a cash deal, and they canceled their earnest money checks. They were out of sale.
Yeah, we do see that.
So that's a whole other issue.
But believe it or not, delivery is in the mailbox.
Wow, I never knew that. I always said they had to have it at the other broker in 2 days. And I always pushed for the time.
Well, and you should. I mean, that's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people sometimes do is they let the buyer mail it. Well, the buyer doesn't care. I got the house, so they'll, it's just not good practice with it. Anyway, back to procuring cause and stuff with it.
Yeah.
Whenever you can, it's best to try to work it out with the other agent. Let them know up front. If somebody's come through yours and you wrote the offer, you need to be really sure that they don't have a buyer contract. as much as, and then buyers are sometimes going to lie.
They come through an open house where.
They come through an open house, they call you about your listing, you go out and show it to them, because they'll, are you working with another agent? Oh, no, I'm not working with anybody, because they just want to take your time and get out there and get in it. As much as possible, you want to try to make sure that they don't have a buyer contract, so you're not crossing somebody else's contract. Yeah, that's the hard part with that. And if you do end up in those situations, it's always best to try to work it out and get it in writing if you have gotten it worked out with them, to the extent possible, because you want to just say our goal is to get this house sold and closed. With sometimes new construction, if the builder has its own documents, they will have the commission in there. If they're using the ones that we have for the state association, they won't have it in there, but sometimes they do.
What document would you use?
I would just ask them to send you a letter saying they're going to pay it.
A letter?
Yeah. If you're going to do anything where you are, let's say you've decided, okay, we talked back and forth and I'm going to pay you 25%, on that, there's a commission restructure agreement that will be an instant in the next 2 weeks.
This might be a little bit off subject, but I had some sellers down in Cottage Grove that did not know about an assessment coming up, and they seriously did not know about it. And then when the buyers got in there a few months down the road, this assessment came. And so there was a whole thing on that. And then my sellers ended up, they went for legal advice. She kind of works in the industry only in leasing, and her lawyer at work, said that she had a good case. But anyway, instead of just fighting over it, they paid the assessment. But in their emails back and forth with the buyer said that she would split it. And then when it came to the actual time of paying it, she didn't. And my seller's lawyer told her just those emails back and forth, she had a case that buyer was in default.
Could be. The hard part is, what did the city send out about the assessment ahead of time? Chances are they did.
I'm sure they did, but my sellers said they were already living someplace else with adult children, and
Okay.
yeah.
Should have gone with to the taxpayer's address with it.
Right.
But that's always hard with it. And it didn't come up on a special assessment search?
And the title, that was a whole other thing too. The title company, they were pretty nasty about it because they should have got it. So the buyer.
Those are always fun things to get into.
Yeah, it was a good time.
If you do get in a situation where you haven't resolved things, the first thing for you to do is to start to document everything that happens along the way. Chronological order. I talked to so-and-so this date, or I showed the house this date. If your buyer did happen to go through an open house or something like that and wants to do it, you better go take a look at the house with them. Because if you haven't got a record of having been in the house, it starts to hurt your case even more. So the more, if you think you're going to end up in a situation where you have to arbitrate it or have to fight over it, the more you document, the better. So if your buyer went through and walked that and then just came back and wanted to write the offer with you, that weakens your case. You should make sure you take them through and set that up and have it be on record having shown it to them. And then document everything along the way. When your buyers contacted you about it, if you called the person, let them, have them go through the open house, those kind of things. Your conversations with them, that helps you, because if you go in and you've got your stuff all in a row here and turn it in that way to the arbitration panel, it works that much better. Like it or not, though, I do think that sometimes the arbitration panels, people have their own personal feelings on things. And some of the people have been around for a long time, and some of them still think on the old, threshold law, which is frustrating. When I sat on the executive committee for the State Association of Realtors, they did training, and they did a case study with everybody, and everybody was on the panel, gave what their opinion was of what the answer should be, and 50% of them got it wrong, even though they'd been through the training and everything. And even the 50%, even if they were told they had it wrong, they still didn't believe they were wrong. That's why I say you always want to try to do this where you work it out with the other agent. You're not going to like it. Now, some ways to really avoid that kind of stuff has to do with a lot with being in touch with your buyers a lot. You know, you never know what they're going to do with something, but if you haven't talked to them for a week or 2 weeks and they wander through something, it makes it that much harder. It's much easier for them to go through and look on their own. Although in this market, I know, you know, there's not a lot to show people, and you get worn out working with buyers. You know, because you've shown them this one and they finally, you know, maybe they're saying, well, we just want to wait a while. Those are the ones that I seem to get the most. Well, the buyer said they wanted to wait a while. I haven't talked to them for 2 months. Well, they wanted to buy a house. You never know when it's going to kick back in. So the more you stay in touch with them, even if it's to stay in touch and say, hey, you know, still not going to do anything, that's great. You know, here's the stuff that's coming on the market. The more you have contact with them, the less likely they are to do that. More important, the more they like you and trust you, the less likely they are to go do an end around. If you see they're getting more and more frustrated because they can't find something, make sure that you really help them understand that you are getting everything that's out there. You want to go above and beyond with that if you start to think you're kind of starting to lose somebody that way, or their mindset's, you know, going that way a little bit. Because again, the more they like you and trust you, and no matter what they do, the more they want to do it with you, the less likely you are to ever end up in a commission dispute with anything. And that's hard because you're working with a lot of buyers maybe right now, and there's not a lot of houses to show them. Or you've shown them everything that's on the market, and nothing's come on the market since, 2 weeks ago. But staying in touch with them helps to, help have that not happen. We also have all this stuff that's coming soon stuff out there, which is a real pain. Because you've got, different people, different agents, different teams, whatever, advertising. Well, we got these coming soon listings, and we do it within the company here where people call them. And the buyer just wants to buy a house. And in some cases, they won't. If you call them to show the house, they say, well, no, we're not allowing showings on that. But if the buyer calls them, they'll show them the house. It hasn't been tested yet, and it's being talked about a little bit right now. In the Code of Ethics, there is a standard that says that you have a duty to cooperate with other agents, not to compensate them, but to cooperate with them to set up showings. I think it's the last standard of practice on there. It's not been tested with anybody yet, but with all the coming in soons out there, I wouldn't be surprised. In the company I came from, I know there was an agent that had a house go on the door, house go on the market right next door to them. And it was from another team within the company, and they would not let him show the house for like 2 weeks in the same company. And then they ended up selling it. That didn't create good feelings either for it. So, if you ever end up with one of those, I think it's always better to cooperate with people. Although, again, it's not been tested yet. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been. If it's not in the best interest of the seller is the way that's written. So I think we may see some of that, but that's another place where you're going to see that. And you really want to, the more you can get your buyers to not want to do anything without you because they trust you to do everything with it, the better case you're going to have with it. Anybody else had any other issues procuring cause-wise?
Well, I
No
haven't
questions?
personally, but I've heard from other agents that they've had clients go through some of these coming soon open houses. And then the clients want to come back and write offers, and they'll call, and the listing agent will be like, we're not taking offers.
They have to. If that ever happens, let me know, because they have to present any offer that comes in, whether you've seen the house or not.
And that's not happened to me, but I've heard a couple agents who have had these issues with the coming soon. And they're like, I don't know what to do. They told me they won't let my offer.
Yeah, if it ever happens to anybody or you hear anybody, let me know, because that's both an issue with the Department of Commerce and ethics issue.
And I have one more question. It's probably not totally related, but somewhat related. I was showing a house in Edina one time, and right on the counter, there was promotional stuff for if you want an exclusive coming soon list of homes, please email us to get on the list. So I emailed them to get on the list because I had an Edina buyer and they wanted a house, and they said they wouldn't give me the list. So I was a realtor, and I was like, well, if you're going to give it to my buyer, shouldn't you give it to me? And they said, no, it doesn't work that way. I said, how is that ethical for your seller?
I don't know if it is. I don't know how they would find that in ethics. One of the things I think we're doing with those things happening out there, we're undermining our whole business.
And the listing agent leaves them on the counter so that when we're doing showings, our buyers see that. And even though they know, like, and trust us, they want a house.
That almost seems the same as you having something on the back of your card that's a solicitation.
Yeah. So I was pretty.
Or leaving a special note that,
Did you get them a house anytime?
No,
They're
they,
signaling the carrot
they-
because they're saying, hey, we've got these homes coming up. So get on our email list and we'll notify you, give the info on it.
but you gotta.
Yeah, but
But you gotta get rid of your buyer's agent to get that list.
yeah. I mean, to me, that's clearly solicitation to somebody else's client, but
Yeah.
it is in there. And who else is coming? I suppose they'd have them there for an open house, and they just left them out. That'd be their
Yeah, so
excuse.
that's what happened. That's what they said.
You know, we, as an industry, we need to watch what we're doing right now because we're undermining it and we're letting people from the outside come in and do things.
So I know you do some work with forums and some of the other stuff. How come, I know a couple of years ago, the Department of Commerce was, they were going to start putting the hammer down on some of these situations, and we just haven't seen it.
Which ones?
Like the coming soon,
The
and the trying to,
pockets.
the pocket listings, trying to get the buyers. on
Well, the
both
person that
sides.
has to have the problem with that is going to be the seller. And there was an investigation done by the Department of Commerce that had to do with the coming soons, and they were able to explain enough to them how it was benefiting the seller,
And sometimes it does.
that it
That's
didn't,
great when
you know,
it
it didn't
does.
work that way. You know, there's some people that, you know, and the hard part for seller right now, if they're in these coming soon situations, they probably got a really good price for the house. Would they have got that extra 20 grand like we're seeing on some of these? Who knows? Maybe they got over the asking price already. They're happy. They're not complaining. What?
That's the problem that we're running into. They're like, okay, this Link House Group, he advertises that we'll get you $20,000 to $40,000 more in your house. Well, guess what? That's against EOC because your house has to upgrade for a certain amount. So he's lying right there.
I don't think anybody's called him on that one yet. I don't know. I've not read his book or been to one of his seminars to
Yeah, I
understand
know
where they
some
tried to
of
say
them. I read
that.
his book. It
That's
tells
why
you how to
we
get dual agency. That's the whole book is about how to get dual agency and make it look good for the seller.
That's
I
why
read the
Remax just let him go. How was I on it? He's
I-
I've read the book.
It's a fun read.
He what?
From Remax. But that's why Remax just let him go. So did I. I came from Remax.
Anyways, I was trying not to say any names of the people. 'cause this is
So did I,
on-
but-
this is on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No,
Uh,
it says.
Well, the interesting thing I think with that team is that they do a lot of business, but there's another Remax team that's much larger, does more business, and the leader of it's very well liked.
There.
Very, very well liked. Very cooperative with things, gets involved in all situations. So there's a much better way to do some of those kind of things. Even doing his marketing that he does.
He wouldn't even think
No.
about.
No. But you know, whenever I've had to deal with that team leader, it's always been wonderful. Even if it's a tough situation, stuff like that, it's all very cordial and stuff like that. That's why I say it's always much better to do that. If I'm ever dealing with something with Edina Realty and I'm dealing with Edina attorneys, we're all very cordial about what's going on, trying to get to that.
I mean, when your marketing states that traditional brokerages are broken and they don't work, isn't that right there ripping on every other brokerage? Aren't you supposed to have an ethical duty not to put down other agents?
Yeah, you're supposed to disparage other people, but I don't know if he's disparaging the industry, not a specific
he's
brokerage.
saying
So I think people need to be more careful about disparaging him.
Yeah, that's
They
why.
have to worry about that. So you know, he's going to do what he's going to do out there, and they'll either sink or swim or do well. Hopefully, we get houses sold to the consumers and stuff like that. But yeah, it'll keep going. It's better not to throw stones and just keep doing your own thing and working with it because you're not going to change things. There's a broker in Rochester that is doing things differently also with a lot of coming soon stuff like that down there, and everybody had their undies really in a twist because nothing's ever changed down there. They're still getting 3% on the buyer side, which you haven't seen in the Twin Cities for forever. So if anybody did something different, paid out 2.7, they were all having a hissy fit about it. But the industry changes. There's different things out there. At one point in time, companies doing what we're doing were unheard of.
Last night on HGTV, I saw a commercial for this company that I hadn't heard of before. It's Fizbo, and it's in Coon Rapids.
There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's room in the market for all kinds of different marketing.
I don't
stuff
know.
like
That
that.
kind of scares me, that kind of stuff.
Well, you need to get your buyers and sellers to like and trust you the most.
Right.
And know that you care about. And I think that's one of the things I hear from people when they do have a complaint about an agent, is they don't really think the agent cared.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can.
If they know you care. I mean, I've had agents, their personalities didn't let them show that they cared. I knew they did because I dealt with them behind the scenes with things, but the way they came across was just their way they were. Their demeanor was kind of cold, so it didn't look like they cared. But behind the scenes, they're working their butts off and stuff like that. So it's all about perception with it. And if they know that you like and trust you, even if you make a mistake, they're more likely to fix it than if they don't. If they don't trust you with things and one little thing goes a little bit sideways, then they're all over you. So get them to know that you care. It's a relationship business still, even though we don't get a lot of time to work with people as much anymore. And when we had houses selling this quickly and stuff like that, sometimes you don't get to work with your seller very much. you met with them a couple times, listed it, sold tomorrow. And then you go through the closing, there wasn't much to build that relationship. So that's why it's important to do those kind of things. Any other situations in general in the marketplace? We'll let you move on about your day otherwise. Nothing? Call me whenever you need something. Especially if you get into these situations, we'll get it worked out. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know like Jill.